Well, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Flight Deck 2 Sim live stream today, the 10th of May 2019 at 5:30 in the UK, for those of you who live in that country. And have we got something special this evening? A 737-200. We've left the beloved Zebo mod for this sector. We'll probably fly as a few more sectors as well. But yeah, it's something I've been wanting to do for a while. I've been learning how to fly this aircraft the last 4 or 5 days, logged about 6 hours, and it's still quite a new beast to me. It's very different in many ways to the NG, in many ways very similar as well, and we're going to do some raw data ILS navigation. We're going to do some raw data VOR navigation all the way from Edinburgh in Scotland to Southampton. Flight time about 1 hour or so. We're going to attempt to do a procedural approach and hold in Southampton as well, so try and get you some guidance on IFR flying as well. Got lots of the members in this evening. I just spoke to Discord on Discord before starting the chat with Timothy Waters, Snapshot 355, Anthony Till, Carl Sangrees here as well, Tim Fraser, and usual people in here. Lots of new people. Spike and his bike's here too. Lots of familiar faces, lots of new people as well. So we're going to do a full setup in the Flyjsim 737-200. It's in this beautiful old school Britannia paint scheme which I got off the store. I haven't spoken to Flyjsim personally, but they did retweet me saying I was streaming today. But my thoughts on this aircraft is I've never flown the 200, but it's an absolutely fantastic aircraft to fly. It's very immersive. It feels great anyway. It feels very similar to the NG in many ways too. So here we are in Edinburgh. I'll jump into the sim now. We're on stand 1, completely cold and dark. I'm going to do a full setup here. The setup takes us half the amount of time because there's no FMC to load, or there's no IRS to align either. So we're going to just do that from all the way from cold and dark there. There's the town, Edinburgh. We've got some nice weather at the moment here. There's a northeasterly wind, a few scatter clouds, 10 degrees. QNH of 1009 as well. So we're boarding here in Edinburgh. We've got the zero fuel weight based on, was it 70 passengers or something? So quite a light load. It's the Flight Deck Sim's inaugural 737-200 flight. We didn't get many tickets, but we do allow smoking on board, believe it or not. So what we're going to do is jump up here, put the battery on. I'm actually going to do pretty much the same setup which I do on the NG. It's pretty similar. It works quite well. So I'll pop the battery on. There it is. All these needles and steam gauges. Look, it's an absolute steam train in here. There's no digital display whatsoever. It's really cool. Now, what we have here on the left hand side, Flyjsim have a lot of the commands on this really handy toolbar. You've got a little bug card here which we're going to use later. I've already loaded up the fuel for today's sector. We'll show you what I've used here. We've got about 7 tons of fuel, which is more than enough for this flight, based on how many passengers. 59 passengers, sorry, not 74. So quite light here. But what I want to do is get the GPU card connected so we don't drain the battery. So if we come up here, there's the ground power switch. Pop that on and look at all these old needles here. The amperage will increase later on when we start the engines. You'll see all that later on there, so that's pretty cool. So the GPU card's connected. I've got all of this on here. Not sure what the rest of it does. Doors, we've got the main forward entry, the cargo doors open. This is quite cool. It's a little maintenance system, so you can see, look, I've been practicing in the Flyjsim. I'm nearly logged 6 hours here. Everything's like new. There's no reports here, and I'll probably keep this running indefinitely, so it could make the stream a bit more exciting if we perhaps do a flight later on if something goes wrong here. And you've got also a little checklist available, but I won't be using that today. Right, so the battery's on, electric hydraulic pumps are on. We check the landing gear lever. There's 3 green lights. On the NG there's some extra 3 green lights here representing the gear, but that's not fitted here. And there's quite cool tables here representing how much oxygen pressure you need and all that sort of stuff, but hey, we don't need to worry about that in the sim. We then check all the documentation if we're at my company at the NG. Now we can go up to the upper overhead panel. Actually no, we don't. We need to do all the fire tests. Now I love doing the fire tests in this old beast because got the extinguisher bottles, very much like the NG, and then the fault tests, very similar lights that come on. You've got the same master caution light that comes up as well. And this is so cool. It sounds like a school bell, you know, when you finish school for recess or something. There you go. Really love that. So that's the fire test all complete. Now we can go to the upper overhead panel. Emergency exit lights we can turn on. Fueling's complete, so we'll put the fasten seatbelt sign on. Test the attend button. The ignition system's a bit different on the 200. They've got this low ignition and flight ignition, so I've been using low ignition for the kind of critical phases of flight. sort of like we would on the NG. Now, this is the MCP. It's beautifully simple. There's no EFIS control panel, just a very simple autopilot, which we will use today. You can select your flight director mode as well here. Still quite new to me. We'll have a play with it anyway and see how we get on the way to Southampton. Like I said, very new to me. And oh yeah, another thing as well, I'm very likely to make a lot of mistakes today because I'm single pilot, IFR navigation all the way to Southampton along the whole length of the UK, so do not expect perfection by no means. Anyway, that's the MCP, lovely and simple. All these steam gauges look for the engine indications. The actual main engine indication is based off of engine pressure ratio, but they've got an N1 indicator here, which is a lot more familiar here. Working our way down, the stop altitude for the SID is 6,000 feet. We'll look at that in a bit more detail in a second. Here's the weather radar, which is pretty cool. We'll be using that there. It does seem to work completely fine with all the active sky weather. Here's the navies all set shortly for departure. We're going to have to do a raw data SID and fire extinguisher. There's all the circuit breakers, emergency escape rope, stall warning. This is awesome. Sounds really realistic as well. Flight recorder test, Mach airspeed warning test. Now I'm not sure what this is. It looks like it's the cockpit voice recorder. Like, you have to set it up manually. Again, it's completely new to me, so I haven't even touched or fiddled with this at all, so that's fine. No IRSs. Oh yeah, I think whilst we're on the ground here, we can pop the electric hydraulic pumps, and if you put this to open, there you go, it pressurizes the hydraulic system. It's a little bit different. I've not been studying the systems on the 200 here at all. So that's all set there, and then you check your circuit breakers on the captain's side. Right, perfect. So we're now jumping back into the captain's seat. The FO's doing the walk around. Let's set the QNH in Edinburgh. So I've got 3 altimeters to set today. QNH is currently 1009. Now I think this is like a captain's standby altimeter, so we'll set 1009 there. It's already set on the captains there, and we've also got the first officers over here too. Yeah, that's already set to 1009. Courses then. Now the course seems to be linked to the MCP. I don't think it was like that in the real aircraft. I'm not 100% sure. Now we want to set a course. I'll show you why I've set this later, of 257 here, and I want a course of 217 here. Again, I'll explain why very shortly, and I want a heading here of 044 degrees. This is all to do with the initial SID that we're going to be flying. Right, just before I go any further, I'll look at some of the comments which I've been ignoring because I'm still setting up the aircraft here. What have we got here? Forget the horror here, just head south. Well, that could work. We're doing it, but we are flying proper airways all the way there. Anti-Teal, you're using a no smoking sign. Well, actually, this is a smoking flight. You don't have to use that emoji. Excellent. Will there be crash tenders with a water just Carl Sagri? Probably. Nonetheless, excellent. Oh dear. Keep these comments coming in. I do enjoy reading them. Right, so that's the MCP set, and this is called a HSI, Horizontal Situational Indicator. This is the primary navigational resource to an instrument aircraft, raw data instrument aircraft. So I'll be using this primarily to navigate. This is called an RMI, or radio magnetic indicator. It's sort of like a backup or secondary navigational instrument. We'll be using this as well, especially as we're doing the hold in Southampton. I'll try and explain what I'm doing, but if you don't have much knowledge on instrument flying, I might be talking a lot of gobbledygook, what doesn't make sense. Leave a comment after the video. I am trying to catch up on my comments on my video at the moment. I'll try and answer the question as best as I can. Right, so if I was in the NG now, I'd be setting up the FMC, but you can see there's no FMC. It's just a metal box. So I haven't even got this SEVA waypoint creator thing. So we're just going to use radio navigation today. So yeah, no FMC to load, so we can go straight up to the upper overhead panel. Now, very similar to the NG. Very few differences here. We can pop the yaw damper on. This is pretty much all the same as a Mach trim test. Now, you have to, I think, slave the compass or HSI to the compass using this. Apparently it's not modelled, so you don't have to keep aligning the HSI every 10 minutes or so like you used to in a light aircraft, but that's what you'd use that for. We'll leave those in normal. You've got fuel heat as well. I've not been using it whilst flying around in the 200. I don't know if that's for a non-standard situation, but it's definitely not fitted to the 800. We only need the main tank fuel pumps on. There's no fuel in the centre tank. We'll pop the galley power on. There's this switch here, which I have not much clue what that does. We've got IDG oil temperature, AC amperage for the generators, which I guess is from the IDGs, EGT for the APU, amperage from the APU I guess as well, and we can come up here, fasten seatbelt sign on. There's a rain repellent, no idea what that does, probably squirts some sort of rain repellent onto the windscreen. Wipers coming up here, window heat, we can pop that on now. Pro heat will do later. Low pressure, that's fine. We've got the doors open. Diff pressure's 0 because the door's open. Now the air conditioning pressurizations are quite different to the NG. I think they've only got 2 packs, 2 zones. I've not been looking up about this, but they've got a little Gasper fan here. We don't need that, but we'll put the packs on. Isolation valve open, leave the APU bleed off. Now this is really important, guys. If you get the 200, there's a little switch here that says ground flight. Make sure you put that in flight prior to getting airborne, otherwise you're going to have issues with pressurization there. We're going to cruise at 31,000 feet. Again, you can set the cabin altitude height here. We'll leave that at 6,000. I've not touched that yet. And the elevation in Southampton is 50 feet. Captain Beager, how will you fly it without FMC? As I said, we're going to follow VOR navigation all the way to Southampton along some airways. It's quite difficult to follow real-world airways these days because everything is based off RNAV navigation and FMC and GPS. So I have found an airway based off conventional VORs, which we're going to use. We can put the position switch on. Again, that's different. We usually have strobe and steady button on the NG, so we'll put that there. And that's about it on the upper overhead panel. That's all set. EPR thrust setting, there's no auto throttle on this, so you have to completely manage the thrust manually, which again, it increases your workload significantly, so we'll worry about that. I think I've left it at 2.15, which is kind of like, I think it's kind of like full thrust setting, so I'll leave that there. That's about it, really. We check all the other stuff. Nav aids we're going to set for the departure. I'll put these in now, and then I'll explain what we're going to do for the SID as well. So we need 108.9. I want that on box 2. There's no transfer switch. There's no transfer switch. All you can do on the 200 is flick it from side to side. So I just use this because I know it's always the active frequency there. So we need 108.9, and then we need 15.4 here. And that's all I need initially for the departure. I'm going to put 15.4. That's fine. That's fine. VHF 1, 2, look at the size of the rudder aileron trim, absolutely massive, and the elevator trims here as well. And that, guys, is pretty much it. I think I've got everything set up quite nicely there. Neville Manager, how does the frames per second compare with Zebo? I've actually found I'm getting a little bit better performance in this here. Oh yeah, this is called an instrument comparator. Again, I had to look this up. It compares the differences between the first officers and captains. The reason the localizer lights up is because we've got different courses set in different frequencies. So you just press that to reset to confirm that's why there is a difference. Right, so I still have the AviTab function. We don't have the iPad on the EFB, obviously, which we get in the Zebo mod, but we can still bring it up here. Let's firstly bring up our airport. I was meant to do this before the stream, but I forgot. We're Echo Golf Hotel India. No, that is Southampton. We want Papa Hotel. There's Edinburgh. And we're going to want airport, and we'll also bring up the SID departure, which is going to be the Gossam 1 Delta for a runway 06 today. Excellent. And that is now set. I'll also bring up the operational flight plan today, which I only updated about half an hour ago, so it's the most up-to-date using the most current winds as well. And I'll try and increase the size of this slightly so you can see what's going on. Right, so here's the flight plan. Edinburgh to Southampton, based off GBASI, which is our actual registration, and it is off a 737-200. I found one on the SimBrief profile. Firstly, look at the fuel flow. 3 tons an hour. It burns about nearly 800 kilos a ton more than the 737NG, so you can see how much more fuel thirsty it is. Zero fuel weight 36.7, based on, what was it, 50-odd passengers. Cruising at 310. Flight time 58 minutes. I've signed for it. My dispatcher was someone called Ruth Hamilton, apparently. She's accepted the flight plan. That's the routing. We're going to explain that in a second where we're going, and that's the rest of the flight plan. But geographically, there we go. Edinburgh. Departure is going to take us westbound. We're going to intercept an airway all the way down to a VOR here, and then basically fly inbound to Southampton. That's essentially it for the flight plan. Now, let's get the charts. Oh, there you go. Here's my performance at 42 frames per second. Excuse me. Now let's go to airports. Right. So here's Edinburgh. We're outside the main terminal on stand number 1. Push back to face north, and we're going to taxi Echo, left turn onto the Alpha taxiway. We'll depart full length for runway 06. And this is the standard instrument departure we're going to fly. It's called the SAM 1 Delta, which is based off runway 06. Now, firstly, you have all the information here, but you'll notice it's a non-RNAV SID. It is based off conventional navigation and all the nav aids that we've set up during this setup here. So it talks about all the frequencies you need to contact. The SID altitude is stop at 6,000 feet, which is why I set that here in the aircraft earlier. And what we're going to do is climb, if you have a look down here on the SAM 1 Delta, climb straight ahead until 0.5 miles off India Victor Golf, or 640 feet, whichever's earlier. Now, we're definitely going to reach 640 feet first. Now, as soon as we're at 640 feet, we're going to make a slight left turn, and this is for noise abatement, onto a heading of 044, which is why I've set the heading bug there to 044 degrees. Then we're going to wait until we're 3 miles India Victor Golf. Now, you're going to get that DME distance here in DME 2, which is in box 2. The frequency was 108.9, and you can see, oops, I've set 108.9 there. And DME 2 for some reasons there. So as soon as that says 3 miles, we're going to make a left turn, 257, to intercept the 077 radial, which is inbound to the Glasgow VOR, which is over here somewhere. Which is why I've got 257 set to the course, and you'll see the HSI will come alive once we make that left turn, and hopefully when we do make that turn, it'll be nicely inbound there, and we can select VOR lock here and let the automation follow the radial inbound to the air. To the Glasgow VOR. Now, when we get to this waypoint called Cumbo, we make a left turn inbound to the Trent VOR on the 037 radial. Now, how do I know we're at Cumbo? Well, you see it says here DME 17. When the DME is 17 miles from Glasgow on the 077 radial, we'll be exactly overhead Cumbo, and that's when we can make our left turn. Tom is just coming in with 50 Norwegian kroner. Thank you very much for diversion. For the donation. Diversion, my goodness, what's wrong with me? Hi, how come the profile in the 737-800 is reserved? So when you are high, the indicator is at the bottom. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Tom. You might have to drop me a message on Facebook. How come the profile in the 800 is reversed? So when you're high, the indicator... Oh, I think you're replying, relating to the VNAV profile there. It's just the way it is. If it's below you, it's telling you to descend or get down lower. But we'll keep the 800 NG questions for another stream. I want to concentrate on the 200 now. But again, thank you for the donation. So, as I said, when we're 17 DME, which you'll see here on the distance there, we'll make the left turn 217 to intercept the airway inbound to Southampton. Now, what I'm going to do there is show you the Navigraph airway chart and routing here, which I don't usually bring up in the stream. There we go. So, our routing, the SID isn't actually programmed, but essentially it's going to take us up over here, down there, and then towards this waypoint here. And then essentially we're going to maintain this heading, and we're going to intercept the Upper Lima 612 airway, which is on the 153 radial from the Glasgow VOR to the next beacon, which is Dean's Cross. And then from Dean's Cross, after that, we're going to tune the next VOR, which is here on Honolly. The routing we're doing is based on real-world airways, so we're going all the way down there. And then from Honolly, we're going to route to the next VOR, which is Compton. And then from Compton, we're going to route direct to Southampton. And then we're going to fly the procedural approach and ILS into that airport there. So that's the routing. Again, whilst we're en route, I'll explain what I'm doing with the nav aids to make sure we're navigating in the correct direction. And that's it, really. So that's the routing. That's the SID. I think I've explained what we're going to be doing on the initial part of the departure. It's an NADP-1 departure from runway 06 in Edinburgh, so we're going to accelerate at the V2 plus 20 until 3,000 feet, and then we'll accelerate the aircraft. Now here we have all the bug speeds for departure. We're going to set 2.15 EPR, which is 97%. I think this is just automatically calculated. It's always the same takeoff thrust setting I've found. Flap 5, our V speeds are quite low because we're quite light. And then we have the up speed, which is 190 knots. It's the 4th ever flight I've done in the 200. You can see there's sector number 4. And that's really cool. You'll notice with the bug cards, look, when I change it, it changes the speeds there. So it sets some bugs for us. We've got, what's this, about 127 for V1. So I'm going to probably fly out at 147 knots, which is, correction, 154 knots, which is this bug here, which is V2 plus 20 approximately. So that's what we're going to use. Cool, so we'll get rid of the bug card, and we'll get the APU started for our pushback. Excellent. So let's have a look outside whilst that's starting up. So yeah, the model is beautiful, I think. It looks really, really cool. Look at these engines as well. What are they called? JB something 820s. They're like cigarettes. Extremely loud, extremely noisy. There's no bypass here, so it's just pure jet there. Here you go. You can hear the APU starting up. Nice. It's amazing how similar this is to the NG as well. Excellent. There's a cable here as well. Look at this. It's not for zip lining. I think it's the HF cable. I'm not 100% sure. I need to look that up. But yeah, that's not fitted to many aircraft these days. Awesome. So yeah, there's that. And we've got Sir Walter Riley as the paint scheme there. Right, APU should be pretty much nearly stabilised here. It was a little bit slower than starting in the 800 here. Perfect. Anthony Carter, blimey, I remember flying this in Flyjsim 2004. Crikey. I had FS 2004, I can't remember there being a 200, must have been a download because that wasn't definitely a default one. Right, there we go. APU can pop on the bus, amps have increased, and we can get the GPU disconnected as well, which I think is here. There we go. Disconnect. Excellent. So what we'll do now, it's quite cool. If you hold down the ground call button, it brings up better pushback, which is quite cool. So you can hear the ground call bell. There we go, and look at that. There's what I made earlier. So it's pushback to face north as explained. So I'm just going to simply press enter, and that should get the better pushback on its way. Perfect. Jack Wood's vodka burners, yeah, absolutely. JT8D engines, that's it. Yeah, I think it has a little sticker here as well that says JT8D. There we go. Brilliant. So we'll pop the APU bleed on as well. Excellent. So you can see we've got the packs on, so there's not much increase in PSI, which is completely normal. There we go, through the terminal. And look at this pushback truck. It looks like a lawnmower of some description. No idea where they got this from. Excellent. So he's connecting the lift-up truck to the aircraft there. Excellent. We've got some nice views as well. Look, we've got the window view here, so on the replay we can see the reverses deploying.
Ready to connect.
There we go, that's the other side. Oh, need to open the window here. Who would have the blind closed? There we go. Excellent. Don't forget to shut the cargo doors. I think when you do the pushback, when you do the ground call for the pushback, it automatically closes all the doors, which is pretty cool. So yeah, you can see all the doors are closed there. Right, so we can imagine that we've got our clearance now. So Edinburgh Tower, I don't even know what Britannia's called, so we'll stick with broadsword. So broadsword 01 request push and start approved. So packs off, there's the PSI increasing, anti-collision light on, parking brake we can now release as we are ready for pushback, transponder to out off. There goes the bridge, and the pushback should start any second now. What I say pushback, looks like we're going forward. Oh no, we're being lifted up, there we go. Excellent. Awesome. Well, it looks like that pushback truck's giving pushback, giving birth to this pushback truck. Excellent. There we go. We're on our way to Southampton. Excellent. So I'm just getting a slurp of drink. Right, let's start these bad boys up. So, it's exactly the same, I think. Well, I've been doing it this way as I've been starting the 800. So just move this to ground, and first thing you're going to look for is N2 rotation. There it is, and I think you bring in the fuel a little bit lower N2. I think 20% N2 I read in one of the manuals here. So N2 you can see is increased. Really the only gauge you have. Let's have a listen to that actually outside. Excellent. That sounds awesome. Right, let's get some fuel in, and we'll look on the external view for that, 'cause it's going to sound awesome. Excellent. It's such a cool model. X-Base is so cool. I guess the sounds are genuine. I've never heard one of these engines. There she goes. Look at that thing. Apparently it's incredibly loud. Incredibly loud. Excellent. So that's the engine number 2 started. We'll start engine number 1 now, and we'll do this from in the cockpit so we can kind of monitor all the needles and stuff, see what they're doing. The engine stabilisation's a little bit different. You've got about 35% N1, EGT is around 220. Well, this might be actually the exhaust air, I'm not 100% sure. N2's there, fuel flow's a lot higher as well than the 800. Right, parking brake is set. Let's get some fuel in for engine number 1. Pilot Marlon, when did you become captain? I was promoted about, was it 3 months ago now? 2 or 3 months ago? Yes. There you go. So there's the exhaust temperature increasing, N1 increasing, engine pressure ratio slowly increasing, N2. But yeah, look at that, it's burning. Well, this is it's in pounds per hour, so it's burning 1,000 pounds per hour each engine. So 2,000 pounds per hour. That's a lot of fuel. Brian, sounds like my neighbour's leaf blower. Outstanding. Is he disconnected yet? I did say release. Oh, there he is. I'll wait for him to show us the pin. Neville, I think their call sign was Britannia. Ah, cool. Somewhere 95, you weren't allowed to try the VC10. Well, was it the VC10? Was it 4 of these engines bolted to the rear? I can't remember. YSH, which airline do you work for? Again, that's one of my most frequently asked questions. I don't disclose such information. Thanks for asking nonetheless. Right, so there's the lawnmower pushback truck thing. He's going to hopefully show us the bypass pin. There he is. Right, and the before taxi flow is exactly the same as it was on the NG. So, generators on, APU off, start switches to low ignition, probe heat can come on. We can put this to open. Again, that's not on the NG, but that seems to get rid of all the master caution lights. Packs on. Put this to auto. APU bleed off. Lights are all set. Dual bleed light should now extinguish. There it goes. Right, flaps 5 for takeoff still. And flight controls, forward, full back, left, centre, right, centre, and the rudders, left and right. Push the recall, and then you'd read some sort of before taxi checklist. I should think of some description, but that's it. Fabian Moodley, no ATC today. No, this is an offline stream. It's going to be pretty much impossible to fly this online. You'd have to tell the guys that you couldn't fly to any waypoints they gave you because you're non-RNAV equipped, unless you flew with the FMC, explained FMC on the 200, which you can select there. But yeah, that's it. Offline today, as I try and, for the lack of experience I have on this aircraft for the first time, try and explain what I'm doing there. Ralph, how old are you? You sound so young and you're already a captain. I'm genuinely impressed. I sometimes pinch myself too. I'm in my late 20s, approaching 30 quite quickly. Just about old enough to be a captain. Right, so imagine we've got the taxi clearance. Pop on these lights here. And you can do the config check again, but make sure you really slowly advance the thrust levers. I found that you get a lot of engine surges if you quickly advance the thrust levers on this aircraft. Again, I don't know how realistic that is, but that's it. Off we go. And as I said, this is actually quite good. I'm going to start using this in the Zebo mod. You can bring up the Avi tab just like this. So yeah, we're going to taxi Echo left onto Alpha. Full length departure for runway 06. Yashesh, do you think that I could get to be an airline pilot as well? Well, no doubt if you study hard at school, if you're still there, you'll be absolutely fine. It's well within reach for many people. I certainly wouldn't have believed it 15, 20 years ago, but I managed it somehow. A lot of hard work. Excellent. Right, so again, that's the little glide slope comparator. That's because we're getting a difference in glide slopes between the two different nav 8s. Excellent. Oh, that's probably not the best view I can use. Excellent. It's such a stubby little aircraft. It's so much shorter than the NG. That's cool. Excellent. The outbox, I sold chickens. I did actually sell chickens. That is the key. Excellent, so we'll do the before takeoff checklist like I would do now with my existing operator. So config we checked, flaps we have 5 indicated with a green light, stab trim, oh yes, we need to press this, there you go, if you press that it automatically sets it for takeoff correctly, which is pretty helpful. So stab trim we've got about 5.5 units set, takeoff briefing, we've got the packs in, on position, bleeds are on, and the V-speeds are on the bug card. I can't remember exactly what they are, but we've got V1 of 127, VR 128, V2 is 134. We're going to fly out at 154 knots. Actually, I forgot to set this to 220, which is my initial target speed. And the departure is the SAM 1 Delta. We're going to climb straight ahead to 640 feet, make a left turn heading 044 degrees, and then we're 3 DME here. We'll make a left turn to intercept the 077 radial inbound to Glasgow. And we're going to stop climb today at 6,000 feet, which is set down here. That's reviewed. We'll imagine the cabin is secure. We pop this here, and I'm going to put the no smoking switch on because I don't want my period passengers to start lighting up their pipes just yet. It could be a fire hazard, but above 10,000 feet they can begin to smoke. Excellent. So this scenery, guys, is from UK 2000. It's quite a cool little scenery there. The Southampton one I've got flying into is from Orbex. That's actually really impressive. The scenery looks really, really good there. I've got a donation coming from a currency I cannot pronounce. It's 2000 or whatever it is, but thank you very much, my friend. I don't know how to say that in your respective language, but thank you very much for the tip and donation. I do appreciate it. Findlay Barfoot, was this a real life flight? I have absolutely no idea. One of the reasons I chose this sector was it took me some time to find one which had good en route nav aid coverage for en route flying. So this is why I chose it, and because we flew into Edinburgh a couple of streams ago, I wanted to do a flight out of Edinburgh too, and because I bought the Southampton Orbex scenery in the recent sale, or maybe ongoing sale. I'm not too sure. Cool. Otherwise, it's amazing how much of my, when I say skills, my knowledge flying the NG was able to transfer onto the 200. There are some differences, but in many ways it is very, very similar. Perfect. Okay, so interesting. I didn't have this. I tested it the other day. We've got some floating stands. I have issues with floating aircraft on VATSIM, but not flowing, not stands, floating, what are they called? Taxiway markings and pictures. Why are they floating? There's an invisible man holding them up. I have no idea. That wasn't there earlier. I hope the sim doesn't play around. Excellent. I think I've got my brakes set too sensitive. Cool. So we are going to initially fly the departure manually, then when we get to around 3,000 feet we'll engage the automation. This has a very rudimentary level change system. It's actually quite effective. You flick this to indicated airspeed and you just set the thrust as you wish, and then the aircraft pitches for speed. It actually works quite nicely. Signs, that's the word I was looking for. My goodness, thank you. Signs, oh my goodness. Right, anyway, there's a runway incursion, but we'll imagine we've got our takeoff clearance, so we'll pop the lights on. Strobes we can put on as well. There's no MCP as such, it's just a little thing here. There's nothing to press here. Transponder we can put to TARA, and we can pop the weather radar on as well, which I'll do very shortly. Excellent. Oh my goodness, it's a lot more sensitive than the Zebo mod, the rudder. I'm having to use much smaller inputs there. Right. So it looks like we've lined up quite nicely there, so I'll bring it to a stop. We'll just pop the weather radar on. Now this weather radar is really cool. I don't know how much functionality it has, but you can pop the weather radar on. We'll set the tilt to 5 degrees. Again, I don't know how realistic that is, how much, if the tilt function works, but we'll set the range to about 80 miles, and hopefully it should display any weather that comes along. Excellent. I just got another tip of donation in from Jamie W. He donated £5. Thank you very much. Tally-ho in the old school bird. Well, tally-ho to you as well. No doubt many of the pilots that flew this said tally-ho. Indeed. This aircraft was obviously flying all over the place in the 80s. Thank you very much nonetheless there. Excellent. Kim Brandwich, flight director to heading. Yeah, I could do that. But the thing is, it's going to start rolling because I've set the initial heading there. But I'm going to do a flight director off takeoff, go a little bit old school. Now, I just need to remind myself what was the target speed. I want to fly 154 knots. So we're going to pitch to maintain 154 knots, and that's pretty much it. A few times on the departure, I'll bring up the SID chart so we can see how we're progressing, and I'll explain what I'm doing with the navigational aids as well. Right, excellent. So what we're going to do, stand the thrust levers up to 40, and actually we're going to stand them up to 70%, and then we're going to have a little listen outside, because it is really, really awesome, the sounds there. So you'd be doing this on the NG if you had icing conditions or freezing conditions outside, but yeah, you can see here, and you get a little bit of black smoke coming out of the engines as well, which is really, really cool. Excellent. Right, let's see how we get on. Oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to screw up so many things here. Right, release the parking brake, and now let's set takeoff thrust. No auto throttle, so we're going to set that EPR to 2.15%. Or 2.15. There we go. That's takeoff thrust set. Indications otherwise look normal. A little bit of a crosswind. So I'm using a little bit of right rudder to maintain centre line. There's 80 knots. This thing is old school. There's V1, rotate, nice and steady, using the rudder to maintain the centre line, and we are airborne. Positive rate of climb, gear up. I want to pitch to maintain 154 knots, which that's going to be really high up actually. So we're going to reduce thrust at about 1,000 feet, just to climb thrust or something. So there's that left turn. We're going to want a heading of 044 degrees. We need to do that until we're at 3 miles. There we go. And I'm now going to reduce that thrust to about 88% N1, and then I'm just going to trim to maintain 154 knots. So I'm just using the needles, just flying old school here. Excellent. So now we're looking for this to turn to 3 miles. As soon as this says 3, we can start that left turn inbound to the Glasgow VOR. Excellent. So just trying to maintain 154, so pitching up a little bit more. Looking good. Nice. And flying, of course, still. Just going to bring that heading a little bit more to the left. Maintaining 154. Excellent. So that's a 3,000 feet. So what I'm going to do is engage the autopilot, flick this to indicated airspeed, and now the aircraft's going to pitch down to accelerate to 220 knots, which is what I wanted to do. There's 3 miles, so we're going to select now heading select, and I'm going to bug a heading to intercept that radial inbound to Glasgow. Now I'm going to select flap 1 as well. Let's go on to a heading of about 285. And now we can select flaps up. You get the stab out of trim light come up a lot. You don't want that coming up on the NG usually, but I'll ignore it for now. Excellent. And you can see here, look, the radial's coming in really nicely. So they see the HSI, the lines coming on. That's going to slowly move towards the centre. And what I can do now is select this to forelock. There we go. And it's now going to follow the radial for me. Excellent. Just like an 800. Right, so we're approaching 6,000 feet, maintaining 220 knots. I'm going to start reducing thrust because that'll allow the aircraft to pitch down. I'm going to want to do about 1,000 feet per minute approaching the stop altitude here. Brilliant. And we'll just maintain, well actually we can accelerate to 250 knots now, so lock this to 250. Again, the aircraft's going to pitch for me automatically in this IAS pitch mode, which is very similar to level change. And there we go. And now inbound 257 to Glasgow, and if I bring up the chart, there you go. We're doing it just absolutely fine. So yeah, it just shows you some of the skills that I had to apply 10 years ago are still somewhere in my head. Still using it there. Excellent. What we have to do now is wait until we're 17 DME. So we're looking here at this distance here. When this distance is at 17, we'll make that left turn 217. Carrying on inbound. Excellent. So the aircraft's slowly accelerating to 250. It's going to carry on climbing as soon as we get to 250 knots. And we'll just match the heading. And whilst it's doing that, I'll do the after takeoff checklist. So headings match, so these off, taxi lights, ignition off, air conditioning and pressurisation is all set, diff pressure is 2.0, put the gear to up and off. There's no auto brake RTO function here, and we'll maintain 6,000 feet for a very short while, and then we'll explain what we're going to do next. Excellent. So what you've got to remember in an aircraft like this is when you reach your altitude, do not forget to reduce thrust, because you've got no auto throttle. So I'm just reducing thrust now just to maintain 250 knots, because that's generally what we need to do below flight level 100. There we go. So completely controlling speed manually in an aircraft like this. Excellent. So, again, we're still waiting for that DME to go to 17 miles. What we'll do now, we're going to go straight up to our cruise level, because it's unlikely that you're going to keep maintaining 6,000 feet here. So what we're going to do is set flight level 310, just to do a continuous climb, which helps lower my workload on a stream like that. So that's 310 set. We're going to go back to indicated airspeed. The aircraft's now going to start pitching for 250, and I'm going to set about 2.15 EPR for the climb thrust setting, which is, I think, a sensible set. It's about 95% N1. There we go. And the aircraft's now going to climb, and now I've got to set all of the altimeters, all three of them manually. So 1013 here, 1013 here, and you can see that the out instrument comparators come on to tell me there's a difference between the first officers and captains. That's because we've got two different pressure settings. There we go, 1013, the light's gone out. And the aircraft should now pitch to maintain 250 knots all the way up to our cruise level. Excellent. Look at that. Because we're so light, we're climbing at about 4,000 or 5,000 feet per minute, so it's still a lot of performance, even in an old tank like this. Brilliant. Right, so we're counting down towards 17 miles. That's the DME before we need to make our left turn. So what we're going to do is start getting everything ready for the next course. So we've got 217 there for the first officer side, and we need to tune 17.5, which is the Turnberry VOR. So we'll put 16.5 here. Now, what I'm not going to do in the sim is you're meant to get the ident, 17.5, that's it. You're meant to get the ident for every frequency you tune before using it. Now, we'll just trust that it works in the sim, otherwise we'll have to do everything there manually. Right, so you can see it's worked, DME to 51 miles, and you can notice here, as we go inbound to Glasgow, you look at the first officer's HSI, you can see that the radial's coming back in quite nicely. So as soon as we're overhead, we can go heading select initially, and then make a left turn inbound to Turnberry. Right, we can do the pre-cruise checks as well as we pass flight level 100. God, the workload is so high here. So fuel, we've got 4 pumps, we can pop all the lights off, APU's off, pressurisation 4.8 psi, temperatures are all set, seatbelts can go to auto, passengers can now start smoking as well. Excellent, there we go. Checks complete. Inboard engine fire, thankfully not, but you should be able to set quite a high N1 here. I'm going to set it at about 92%. We're quite light, we should easily get up that way today. Right, anyway, here we go, 18 miles, so as soon as this goes to 17, there you go, look. Cookbow, 17 miles, 17 miles. What I'm going to do now is go heading select. And I'm going to use the RMI to set the heading inbound to the beacon. And what the RMI is, you can see here, look, that's pointing towards there. We need that the head of that needle on 217 degrees. So what I'm going to do, slightly overshot it, go on to about 213. And that should push the head back to 217. And what we're going to do now, we can now set that course here, 217. And 17.5. Which is now active. You should see the HSI come, boop, there it is. And now I can just simply go back to Vorlock. There we go. We're now tracking the radial manually, automatically. There you go. Oh yeah, 250 knots. We don't want to be doing 250 anymore. We want to be doing about 280. That's going to be a decent climb speed. Yeah, VNAV would usually do that for you. There you go. Excellent. So that's a good climb speed, 280 knots or so in an aircraft like this. Right, so what's the next bit we need to do? Now, what I'm going to do is bring up the airway chart for you. I'll bring it up for myself as well, and we'll select the aircraft on. Now, we're not going to be on this red line. We're going to be up here somewhere. There we are. We're going to keep on this heading towards Turnberry, which is over here. We're going inbound to this radial here, and we're going to intercept the 153 radial from Glasgow to get onto the Upper Lima 612 radial. So 153, that's the course we need to punch in there. So we'll go back to heading select as well. There's probably a better way of doing this, but I'm just doing what works well for me. So heading select, there we go. 153 was the course. and the VOR from Glasgow, if we bring up the jet chart, or airway chart as well, you can see on here, look, is 115.4, and then we should be able to intercept that quite nicely. So we're going to go down here, 115.4, there we go. Something's come alive, 10 miles away. Now that's quite a sharp intercept there, so what I'm going to do is just give myself a little bit of a left heading there, just so it's not such a sharp intercept, not about a 45-degree intercept maximum. And again, same again, we can arm VOR lock, and when it's on the radial, it'll intercept the radial and fly outbound on the 153 from Glasgow. Excellent. And 20,000 feet jet pressurisation, everything's looking quite good up here. Working well. Excellent. Matthew Taylor, would you manually accelerate the aircraft at flight level 100? Yes, just like I did there, bug the speed up, which I forgot to do to 280 knots or so. The Tarsa Gamer Britannia was the first carrier I flew on back in 1993. They were an outstanding company, can always remember the Glasgow airport. All you could see was Britannia and the Air 2000s. 757s, oh the joys. I was quite a young lad in that year there. Anyway. Excellent. Chart's still showing, sorry guys, I forgot to set the chart off, didn't I? Yeah, this is the problem, I only have one monitor, so I can't see if I've got the chart up when I'm in the aircraft. Anyway, there we go, thanks for that, whoever spotted that. And you can see anyway, the aircraft's now intercepted the radial from Glasgow, 153, and we'll be going to the next beacon, which is Dean's Cross, which we can actually put on box 2. And that frequency is 115.2, which you can put here. Excellent, you should see, there we go, the DME's just updated to represent the next beacon there, and we can match the heading mode as well. So this, guys, is exactly how I learned to do instrument flying, in a Seneca, essentially, and I'm just treating the 200 just like a big Seneca. In essence, that's what it is. It's no different, the indications are the same, just flying a little bit quicker, that's the only difference there. Brilliant. Now, working out drift, you're going quite fast in the aircraft there, but you can tell the wind's coming from the right-hand side of the aircraft, so coming in from the south or northwest there. Because you can see that the heading, slightly, it's about 5 degrees to the right of the HSI, but you don't have to worry about that because you've got the radial tuned. You just set a heading, it's just following the radial, but if you're in heading state, you'd have to set a heading to compensate for that drift. Right, so we're going to keep accelerating at 280 knots. You can see the Mach number coming into view now, so we're going to start referring to Mach as the primary speed indication. We're going to cruise at about Mach decimal 74 there. Steve Mayer, loving the navigation. Boss brings back memories, excellent. Martin Tilburg, so before you could only navigate between VORs, but how you can get the aircraft to fly to any waypoint, which is just lat long basically. Yeah, you know, VOR navigation traditionally was what airways were built from, and they still are based off that. And now with GPS they can create waypoints wherever they like, so they're a lot more efficient. You know, they're not having to turn every few seconds. You can basically build long straight lines as well. Cool. Now, what I will do is just bring up the Jefferson chart again. Hopefully I'll remember to turn it off this time. But you can see where we are. There we are. So we're tracking nicely on the 153 radio on the Upper Lima 612. We'll go all the way up to our cruise level. Inbound to the next beacon, which is Dean's Cross. Now you'll notice inside the beacon here there is no hexagon shape. That's because there's no radials associated. It's just a DME distance, so we can't really track inbound on a radial here. But after that, we can just base it off the outbound radial. But after that, we're going to track inbound on the 338 radial, which is from, I think it's Honolulu, all the way down here. Yeah, so it's quite a way away, but we're going to have to use that one after Dean's Cross there. So we're just going to use the DME distance. Now, when we get closer to Dean's Cross here, you'll notice the DME2 won't count down to 0 miles. That's because we're actually quite high. It's going to show you the height above the beacon in nautical miles. That's called slant range. So we're going to be cruising at 31,000 feet. That's around 5-ish nautical miles. When we overhead Dean's Cross, exactly overhead the beacon, I'll get rid of the Jeppy charts, it should say DME2 here of 5 miles. So that's what you have to do. Steaming Spoon 60, Captain, what's the difference between the DME2 on the main panel and the RMI distance indicator? So what the 200 seems to have is the HSI's here, but it gives you DME 2 off nav 2, and on the first officer side he gets his own HSI and he gets DME 1, so you can see each other's distances off the respective DME frequency and radial there. So that's why that's set, and you can keep, you can notice here, this is obviously tuned to Dean's Cross. You'll see it says glide slope and forelock. That's because there's no radials, it's just DME distance there. Perfect. You'll see, look, the needle's horizontal because there's no guidance from that beacon there. Monish Johnson, why are you not replying? What was your question? Did I miss it? Hello, Captain. From which school did you do your flying? Was it a cadet program? I went to Oxford Aviation Academy, or what is now known as CAE. They bought the school, renamed the school. And it wasn't a cadetship. I had to get a loan out for my flight training, unfortunately. So that's it. Sorry I missed your question, but I am trying to fly this aircraft. I do miss the odd comment coming in there. Brilliant. So we'll keep the thrust setting here. I'm just going to increase it slightly. So we are climbing very slowly. Barely doing about 1,000 feet per minute now. What was that noise? Did you hear that? Was that thunder? Oh gosh, I hope not. Where's the weather? Oh look. I have actually got some weather here, but we'll stay well above that, I think. Oh dear. Excellent. So now we're coming up to Mach decimal 7.4. I'm going to start bringing the indicated airspeed back, because if you climb at a fixed indicated airspeed, your Mach number will increase there. Steve Mayer, any chance in the future of a twist and turn on a DME arc? Oh, DME arcs, raw data. Oh, that's tough. Yeah, we could do that. 200 there. That's tough work, though. That's tough work. I think I only once did it during my instrument rating. It's unusual to have to do something like that these days. Excellent, so 1 to go. Start reducing that thrust to maintain about 1,000 feet per minute up to our cruise level. A Silky Monkey, I missed your question too. They're coming in thick and fast, that's why. Oh, I'm scrolling up. I can't miss that there, buddy. I'll have a look in a second. I'll ask again, I'll try and catch it there. Steve Frampton, BBC Weather does say thunderstorms today. Yes, thankfully not up here. Hopefully we'll be way above it. If I increase the range, I don't think changing the tilt will do anything. There's a little bit of stuff here, but we should be well above it up here at 310. Excellent. So there we go. We've got outhold going green. Oh, you can have the flight directors on as well, I guess. So you've got the guidance there. And now we need to start reducing thrust. Again, remember there's no auto throttle here, and I want to maintain a back Mach decimal 7.4. So we're just going to bring the thrust back there, which apparently is had default sort of cruise speed in the 200 there. So we'll let the speed come slowly back there, but you've got to keep monitoring it. If you get busy or distracted, you won't notice anything there. Gamer Tube, some outside views, please. Yeah, very shortly. I'm just going to set our door thrust and speed so we don't stall and fall out the sky there. So let's get 7.4. Let's start bringing the thrust up there just to get the speed to stabilise. There we go. So long as it's increasing and not decreasing, with parasitic drag it should stabilise quite nicely. A little bit of turbulence. I'm just fiddling with the thrust just to keep make the speed kind of stagnant there. There we go. That seems to be fine. It's about 1.67%. Right, so let's have a little look around the cabin and outside. So we can go into the cabin and see what the passengers are seeing. There's first class in Britannia. Slightly bigger fabric seats. This just reminds me of the sort of bus there. You can see how much smaller it is there. There we go. Open the window. Looking good out there. We can go to some other external views. Frames are dropping slightly there. Cool. And here is the external view. Plenty loud enough. Yeah, so we're up here. We survived. Did a little fly past as well. Nice. That sounds so cool. There you go. Contrail with a bit of black exhaust mixed in for good measure. Anyway, just before I get to some more comments, you can see the DME is reducing now. 8 miles, so we're going to be very, very close to Dean's Cross. We actually need to set the next radial after Dean's Cross. And we need to close all of this as well. bring up the airway chart. So charts. And I'll show you where we are. Dean's Cross, there we go, 15.2. The next radial we need is 158. You see this little 158 here, which is the inbound course. So, just going to set here back to heading select. And you see how it says DME 5 now, that means we're directly over the beacon there. So I'm going to go heading select, set this course to 158, and I'll just show you where we are. Should be right over the top. There we go, look. Bang, right over the top of the beacon, and you can see, look, it still says 5 DME here on DME 2. Right, so the next radial, what I say, is 158, and we need the frequency for Honley, which is 113.65. There we go. Oops. And there we go. There's the radial coming back in, and we can go back to Forelock. There we go. 152 miles away. That's quite a steep turn. There's no angle and bank protection here, I don't think. So I'd be a bit worried if it was doing a kind of aggressive turn like that onto the radial. Quite a sharp intercept it's doing. Anyway, we are quite far away, 158 miles, so it just wants to get me back straight onto the radial there. Mix 2000, we want passenger Escobar. Oh dear. Deceptive, you forgot to mention chemtrails. Yeah, chemtrails, yes. Not another conspiracy theorist, I hope. Brilliant. And there we are, now inbound on the 338 radial, which is the 158, inbound to Honley, which is near Birmingham, if you're from the UK. You'll be familiar with where that is. Perfect. So, what I'm going to do now, because it is quite a short flight, is press home. Airports, we're going to put in Southampton next. We're not going to be flying a star today, but I will show you a star just to demonstrate our routing. We need the ILS. We could do a straight in ILS on runway 20, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do the procedural approach, enter the hole, just for a bit of fun. And also airports. There we go, that one there. Perfect. So that's what we'll brief very shortly. Simon Sandstorm, flying with the cockpit door open, just like the good old days. Absolutely. Yeah, even I remember when I was younger, going into the flight deck in the middle of the flight. No problem in the virtual world, but of course, long gone are those days, unfortunately. Anthony Conte, you need X-Vision in your life. You're not the first person to make that suggestion. Apparently it does really make an improvement on how the sim looks, and especially if it increases performance, I might invest in that, which would be pretty cool. Tim, that looks more smoky than my diesel crane. Outstanding. Excellent. Steaming Spoon, turn off the Navigraph live location cap. That is cheating. You're actually right. Let's do that. And then hopefully I can explain where we are. And then I can pop it up and we can go, oh yes, we're there. Excellent. Oh, look, you see we're slightly off the radial. That's probably because we're so far off. Now, why isn't that turning off? Anyway, I'm not using it, trust me. I am going old school with the beacon tracking. I can't turn it off anyway. There we go. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I'll get rid of that for now. Oh, you weren't even seeing it. There you go. I put the charts up, but I can't get rid of it. Look, I don't know why. You press it, but it's not disappearing. Who knows, but I'm not going to use it. Don't you worry about that. Perfect. Steep Frampton, short runway in Southampton, but I used to live just east of runway 02 and I've seen a few 737s in and out. Yeah, it is very short. It's 1,600 metres landing distance, in fact, which is approaching the sort of limits of what you can land on any 737, let alone a 40-year-old 200 aircraft. So, yeah, we're going to use max braking. We're quite light today, flat 40. We should be fine. Fingers crossed. Jack Woods, what about doing the procedural VOR DME? That's what we are going to do. We're going to fly over the beacon, do the hold entry, and then fly straight outbound for the approach, which I'll explain quite shortly. What we can also do, bring up the course for the first officer and the DME distance as well. So we've got the DME 2 showing what we want. 158. there we go. And it's 1365. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't actually tuned and identified any nav aids before using them, which is what you should do. Now, if I bring up the Jefferson charts and we go down here, and I'll show you what we have to do to identify a nav aid. Obviously on the NG, you get it on the ND display, the correct 3-letter code. But you can see there's, I don't know Morse code, but you find it on the chart. So you can see here for Honley, there's 4 dots, 3 dashes, and a dash and a dot. Well, if you go down here to nav 1, turn that on, listen very carefully. It's really faint. I can just about hear it. Yeah, it's too loud, unfortunately, the cockpit environment. I can hear something in the background, but that's essentially how you identify the nav aid, nonetheless. But anyway, the reason we do that is because you don't want to tune the wrong nav aid, follow the guidance, and find out that you're actually flying the wrong, flying to the wrong beacon, which could be disastrous. Perfect. Speed's nice and stable at magnesimal 7.4, 7.5. We'll leave that there. All looking good. Nick Ray, how much have I missed? Not much, about an hour. You missed the takeoff, cruise and climb. We've probably got another 30-40 minutes to go. Jack Woods, you meant the non-precision approach. We'll do an ILS today. Be gentle, be gentle. We'll do a non-precision approach on the next one. We're going to do the procedural approach onto the ILS though. Perfect. Right, so our top of descent's going to be roughly just before the Honley VOR. I've calculated the track miles we need from here, about 90. Plus we need to fly the full approach, so it's going to be different to what the DME distance says. So around 15 minutes now we'll commence our descent, so we'll just start talking about the approach we're going to fly. Now, we're currently routing direct to the Honley VOR, which is up here somewhere. After Honley, we're going to route direct to Compton, which is here. Then from Compton, instead of going to Pepys, which is a hold and speed limit point, then SAM, we're just going to go Compton direct to Southampton, just to make my life a little bit easier. And secondly, because all of this is based off the SAM VOR being unserviceable, which it isn't. We're actually going to have to use that today for our approach. So that's the kind of arrival we're flying, but not really using it. This is the approach we're flying. It's ILS DME for runway 20. Now, for those of you who have social media and Instagram, you'll see that on my story I posed a question. It said, if we're coming in from the south on a track of 189 degrees, what sort of hold entry do we need to do? Now, if you're coming in from the south, the inbound course is 020. I see a bit of thunder there. I hope we don't have to fly with that. Brilliant. We're going to have to do something called a teardrop or offset entry. So we're going to fly over the head of the beacon, fly for a minute in this direction because we're going to be below 14,000 feet. You make that track 30 degrees off the outbound course, so we're going to need a course of 170 degrees for that. We've got a snapshot of 355 coming in with a €20 tip and donation. Very generous, thank you very much. I've been looking forward to this stream all day at work. It's definitely not disappointing. Have a couple of pints on me. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, but I'll get you 3 pints there. Thank you very much. I appreciate the tip and donation on this. Thank you very much. So as I was saying, we're going to fly overhead the Southampton VOR. We'll do an offset entry for the hold, which takes us on a track of 170 to around this position here, and then we'll make a right turn in the whole direction on the holding side, inbound to the beacon. Once we've done that, we're going to fly overhead the beacon, outbound for a Category C aircraft, which we are in the 200, on a track of 038 until we're 7.2 miles from Southampton, and make a left turn to intercept the ILS and make a landing. So we're going to kind of do a figure of 8, coming in from the north, overhead the beacon, right turn, outbound on the course, left turn. It should look like a figure of 8, and that's the kind of correct way of entering the approach. You can't kind of come in this direction and go straight outbound. You could if you got permission, but it's quite messy if you're following courses and needles. If you had an FMC and LNAV, it could work, but we're going to do it properly anyway. And that's it, really. Regarding all these frequencies, courses and minimums, I'm going to have to set the frequencies of courses quite late because I'm going to have to use the Southampton VOR, obviously, for the approach. But what we can set here is the minimums, at least, which is 244 feet. Now, on the altimeter, there's quite a rudimentary system. You can set to the nearest 100 feet, so I'm going to set that to 300. There is a radio altimeter. You wouldn't usually set radio altitude for a barometric altitude minimum, but we'll set that to 200. It's pretty much flat onto the approach there, so that should pretty much represent the MDA on the ILS there. And all you do, you get a big MDA light flash up, which is pretty useful there. Cool. Thank goodness we're above all this weather. I don't want to be flying for any of this there. So the minimums we've set, ILS explained. For the procedure here, once we're outbound on this track, we can go down to 1800 feet. Probably not going to manage a CDA or anything. We'll go from there. Got another tip and donation coming in from passenger Escobar. £5, thanks for the custom meal option. Oh Christ, well obviously yeah, you're not flying today, so you've created a YouTube account and donated accordingly. Thank you very much, passenger Escobar. Your special meal is on its way. For those of you unfamiliar with the Zemo mod, that is a little twerk and little tweak audio bird XP's put in into the mod. Right, lastly, landing performance. Runway 20 then, landing in this direction. 1723, it's already short, but not only that, slight displaced threshold. You can see here for 20, landing distance available beyond the threshold says 1678, but it says 0.2 here. Reading number 2, this is landing distance available 1605 metres. That is incredibly short for a 200. It's far shorter than I really want to do. I hear that thunder, you wouldn't really hear that in reality. Anyway, 1605 metres, so what we're going to do is select the order brake to max. I'm going to use reverse thrust, and how do I get the little book? Oh, this happened earlier. I had a little glitch earlier, and I don't know what it is. If it's Flyjsim, if someone can find out, that's great. I can't get the menu to come back up for some reason on the left-hand side, which means I can't set my bug speeds. Now, I think I selected landing earlier. If I remember, when I go back on the beginning of the stream, if someone can check it, said the VREF based on our current weight. If we could use that as the target VREF, that's fine. I think it was about 125 knots. But if we plan about 130, I'm going to use this white bug here as our VREF. I'm going to fly about 130. But it's happened when I was testing it. I sometimes lose the little menu here, so I can't fly anything there. Anyway, that's the approach flown, approach briefed, and how we're going to plan on flying it. I hope that sort of made sense. A lot of information I've given you, and again, I'll try and explain what I'm doing whilst we're flying in there. At that point, we then read the descent checklists and stuff. that thunder is hilarious. I like it, but they need to turn down the audio. Oh, look, you can see, you can even see the lightning. We should be up okay here at 310. There's nothing up at this height today. Brilliant. So how are we getting on? 67 miles from Honolulu. What we can actually do is tune the next VOR, which is Compton, on box 2. So we're using Honolulu this side here, and that is 1435. There we go. And then the course we need after Honolulu will be 163, which we can put on the first officer side. There we go. So you can see here we've already got the DME distance from Compton. Compton's not too far from Southampton, so when that gets to around 80 or 90, probably around a good point to commence our descent there. I've got another donation coming in from Lantern Mag. Thank you very much, £5. Keep up the good work. Flying from Glasgow to Oslo on X-Plane 11. Excellent. Live weather, no doubt. I hope. Hopefully you've got none of those thunderstorms over the North Sea. We'll see how you get on. Thank you very much, nonetheless. Cool. So again, we'll bring up the Jefferson chart so you can see where we are and how we're progressing. So we should be, there's Honolulu. We should be somewhere along the airway. There we are. Again, we are cheating, but for some reason I cannot... Oh, there it is off now, so we can say, look, we're not following it anymore. So yeah, we're pretty much coming overhead Manchester and continuing southbound towards Honolulu, and then we'll go to Compton, and then from Compton direct to the SAM VOR, which is just here. Excellent. Right, remember to close that window as well. Cool. So probably commence our descent in approximately, 5-10 minutes or so. When that DME gets to around 70-80 miles, that's going to be a good point to start descent there. Somewhere like information overload, yeah, I know. My pace as well. Oh, who's that? Stephen W. Flat 40, VREF was 125. Excellent. Well, that was based on our takeoff weight. It's probably going to be a few knots less now, but we'll use 125 as a conservative figure. But again, I don't know why it drops off. I tried to get it back earlier, but I found the only way to do it was to reload the aircraft. Don't know why it does that. Perfect. Here's the question there. I'll regret this. What a name. Using Active Sky. Yes, this is Active Sky for X-Plane 11. Which is quite a useful, well, quite a good weather engine I found. It seems to really replicate winds, especially like crosswind components and stuff really well. On our last live stream, we did a 25 knot crosswind into Fiumicino, and it handled those winds really nicely. Well, it certainly seemed to fly quite nicely. Rick S, when are we landing, bro? In approximately 25 to 30 minutes, I'd say. Sean Stevens, is there a plug-in menu item for speed cards? I looked in the plug-in menu, there wasn't anything here that I could see there. Perfect. And there is that amazing Ortho 4XB scenery, which unfortunately we can't see very well. Got another donation coming in. It's from Torsten Schwartz. Thank you very much. Some gas money for the gas eater. Thank you very much. I'm not sure in reality $5 would get you very far in a 200, but nonetheless, I'm going to my beer fund for a pint later on this weekend. Thank you very much for the tip and donation there. Yeah, talking about gas guzzling, you can see here that we're burning 4,000 pounds of fuel per hour, so that's around, what's that going to be, 2.2 kilos per pound, so yeah, you're burning a lot of fuel here. And what I actually found there, if you look at this needle, you can see the fuel quantity always decreasing on the needle look. Imagine on the takeoff, looking at that needle going down and be going like this. So yeah, I always get this message up saying prop loading scenery, but it never seems to be any issue there. So yeah, it is using a lot of gas. We've got about just under 12,000 pounds of fuel on board, so about 6-7 tons or so, which is more than enough we need. Or less than that, about 5. Jake Wiltshire, are you vegan? No, thankfully not. I'm a full-blooded carnivore. My other half is a vegetarian, but that is nothing wrong with that. Flyjsim, thank you very much for retweeting about my tweets as well. Obviously, he is the developer of this aircraft, or part of the company that developed that. If the airport appears below you, time to descend. That's a good clue. Excellent. Obviously, yeah, Flyjsim made this aircraft and very kindly retweeted and promoted the stream, which is quite cool. It's a brilliant aircraft. Again, I've never flown a 200, but it seems to handle just like the 800, and it's great fun actually for me to review my own instrument flying skills, see if I've still roughly got it or so. Perfect. So I reckon we've got about 80 miles to go to Compton, 26 miles to Honley. After Compton, the Southampton VOR, I don't know what the distance was, I'm looking at the chart distance here, it's about another 20 miles, about 100 miles to run. Probably going to delay the descent a little bit more, maybe about until this reaches about 60 miles or so, because the plan is to go over the SAM VOR around, I don't know, flight level 80, a bit lower perhaps, and then continue descent all the way in there. We'll see what we can do. Alec D, are we on VATSIM? No, because that would be far too difficult based on my current experience on the 200 to try and deal with that and try to fly this aircraft for the first time, but perhaps we'll try a VATSIM flight in this bird for the ultimate challenge in the not too distant future. Mach 66 Metal, I might have lost it, but is there a standby VOR selector on this plane, or is it just nav 1 and nav 2? It's just nav 1 and nav 2, and there's 2 ADF receivers as well. It's a bit crazy because you've got 2 boxes, and you can only select this one as active and this one as active. Now, I do not like having that on the active side, because on the NG, anything that's on the left-hand side is the active frequency, so I've just been using the primary one and changing it there. Steve May, about 5.5 tons of fuel. Thanks, my pounds to kilo conversion was I couldn't work that out of my head quite quickly, but 5.5 tons, this is burning 3 tons an hour, so we've got about an hour and a half endurance. The FSB 737, I should be studying ATPL operational procedures at the moment, as I have an exam tomorrow, but your stream's more interesting. Yeah, keep concentrating. Right, so I reckon now's going to be a good time to start descent. So this is the DME distance to Compton, plus 20 is going to be at 86, plus the full hold, about 100 or so. So I reckon now's going to be a good time to descend. So what we're going to do is go to the out selector, and we're just going to go down to, let's say, flight level 80 initially. Clearance all the way down there. We select indicated airspeed, and I'm going to slowly bring the thrust to idle, and the aircraft's going to start pitching down to maintain to 80 knots. I love this, it's just like level change, it's pretty cool. There we go, we'll maintain to 80 knots, we'll bring the speed back to 250, approaching flight level 100. Andy Billam, would the engines on the 200 be more thirsty than those on the 800? Yes, I looked actually. The 800 burns conservatively, you can say about 2.4 tonnes an hour. This is about 3.4 tonnes an hour. It's a lot more fuel thirsty. For the MTA light was on, it's the light illuminating it. Excellent. And there's a nice external view. Awesome. Ooh, contrails coming from in front of the engine. Interesting. No doubt that needs some adjusting, but hey, what a cool livery and paint scheme. Really, really cool. And we haven't crashed yet, which is always a good sign. As we descended to Southampton. Perfect. So approaching now the Honley VOR, we can do what we did earlier. You can see, oh look, we've actually just gone overhead the Honley VOR. So I'm just going to go back onto heading select here. I didn't anticipate that. And we'll set a heading to get onto the next course, which is 163 degrees. And what was the Compton VOR? 1435. So I didn't quite anticipate that. Went right over top of the beacon. That is now active, 1435 on a course of 163, and there we go, we can go back now to Vorlock, and we're inbound to Compton. Is sharp with those turns. Excellent, it's actually quite a clear sky ahead, how unusual for the UK. So now we're inbound to the Compton VOR, and what we can do on the first opposite side is set the Southampton VOR, as we are getting close to our destination. And on standby, I'm going to put the ILS straight away, which is, what is it, 11075, which is already there. Excellent. So that now is the distance to Southampton, so 80 miles to run. So ideally 80 miles, we're at 24,000 feet frustrated, so we're actually quite low based on the fact that we're going to fly the full approach and procedure. So I'm going to probably start reducing the rate of descent to around 1,500 feet per minute, 1,000 feet per minute, so we don't level off throughout the procedure. We'll try and do a continuous descent where possible. Excellent. Flyjsim, the particles appearing in front of the aircraft is an issue of explain shifting the particle coordinates. Ah, there you go. Steep flaps have always cleared Southampton, the UK Riviera. Very good. Yeah, actually, where are we geographically? I'll bring up the Jefferson charts again. So we just passed Honley inbound to Compton now. So we've got Oxford. We're just about to go overhead Oxford. I'll show you here. We're going to be on this airway up over the 85 line. There we are. So we've got Bryce Norton, Oxford. Just provided my instrument rating just here. You can actually see the airport just there on the side. It's been a long time since I've been there. It won't shut off. There we go. Perfect. As you can see out here, you might see it by looking out externally. Is that Oxford Airport? Or is that Bryce Norton? Probably Bryce Norton there. But yeah, nice. Ortho 4XP. Finally got to enjoy it during the daytime. Really incredible, like this area. That's Oxford Airport. I recognise those runways. Oh no, that looks disused. Although that might be Oxford Airport, I don't even know. Not on this height. I don't have an ND with a waypoint function to see where the airports are. At least we know where we are in relation to the radial DME distance, which is the important thing. Timothy Waters, the waypoint Kidley, right over CAE, boss. Nice. Fortunately, I don't have a way of selecting waypoints or looking at waypoints, unfortunately. Perfect. Yeah, I reckon that is Oxford down there. That's the city of Oxford. I was always under an IR hood, so I never got to see anything. That's going to probably be Bryce Norton, isn't it? Again, I don't know very well. That, oh, what is that stately home called near Oxford? I completely forgotten. There it is anyway. Yeah, Kidlington. That's going to be right, Kidlington. Probably out there somewhere. How cool. Didn't actually realise that we're going straight over the top of when I did my instrument rating. Excellent. I'm actually just going to add a little bit of thrust here, just because we're going to probably get a little bit low. I want to add thrust, maintain about 1,000 feet per minute or so. We'll just keep it at about 280 knots. Deceptive. How do you input routes in this thing? Is there an FMC? You don't input routes. You just basically have to use VOR beacons and airways to get yourself there. This is the way I used to fly many times for Blenheim Palace. Thank you guys. Thank you. This poor geographical knowledge coming into fruition there. But there is Oxford down there for sure. That's actually... Is that Kidlington? I can't remember. It's been such a long time since I've been there. But yeah, the Orphe Force Beach is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Let's find Oxford Airport now. Oh, where is it? I just cannot remember. Oh, maybe that is Oxford, I cannot say for sure. Oh, cool. But yeah, we need to do some VFR flights around with Orphe Force Beach. Look really, really cool. Rainer Schultz, how do you control your fuels with the mouse joystick? It's a combination, so I'm using the keyboard here, up, down, left and right, and then the right click and mouse to pan and look around. It becomes quite instinctive if you keep practicing that. Again, I'm just going to add a little bit more thrust, just so doing about 1,000 feet per minute, just like I would do with a level change here. Excellent. Right, so I better tell the passengers to put their cigarettes out and return for the toilets with the seatbelt sign on as well. Logikiki, I gotta say, I recently found you on YouTube, and I gotta say, I appreciate your content that you make. Absolutely love it. Thank you very much. Welcome to the channel. It's really good fun doing this. I really do enjoy it, get excited by it as well. I was a huge sim rider, still am, but simming was a huge important part of my childhood growing up, and it's nice to return to it, having done it for real, which is pretty cool. Passenger Esquire, do I have gluten-free bread on board today? I'm afraid not. Good, so I've just added thrust now just to maintain about 1,000 feet per minute. Logikiki, are you planning on making any tutorials of the 777? Not planning at the moment. I'll probably always be based on the 737, 200, might try the 300, 400. And the Zibo mod, which obviously I'm part of the development of and provide feedback to Zibo frequently of. But we might, for a bit of fun, try a different aircraft one day, you know, like a bit of a chilled out stream on a 777 or maybe an Airbus or something. See how we fly that aircraft. Not very well, probably. Oliver Cole, good evening to you. Good evening, Captain. Flying the Zibo Vintage Edition today. Zibo will probably in his spare time be able to make a 200 just as good as this. But he's very busy with the mod, the 800. But yeah, this is a very good plane nonetheless. Right, so we're going to go back to idle thrust now. About 40 miles, so we're going to be about 5,000 feet over the beacon there, so that looks good. You'll notice now the aircraft will start pitching down to maintain 280 knots. Janyot, seen the EasyJet inside the cockpit show. It's horrendous how they've embarrassed their own airline. Well, you give those guys a break, you know, because that was me once. I started there somewhere. Gotta start somewhere, guys. Right, so we're going over Compton. Next course is going to be 189, so again back to heading select. There we go. Set this to 189. We'll put the heading to 189, start the turn now. So directly over the beacon, well, a little bit early actually. Heading about there. You'll see, when you know, how do you know you're over the beacon? You'll see the needle swing. There you go, look at the needle dropping now. There we go, needle swinging round. And we can now set the Southampton VOR here, 11335. Excellent. Now she come back in, HSI. There she goes. And now we can go back to Forelock. There we go. Perfect. Right, now we can put the ILS on standby here, 1075. We've got about 30 miles to run till Southampton. And coming down, we've got a donation. Carl, one of my members frequently donates. Very generous again, $25. Probably not going to get a water arch in Southampton, so here's a little something to say congrats on the 732's maiden flight. Well, thank you very much again, Carl, for the tip and donation. It's been fun. This flight's been fun. Busy. I'm tired already. We've been streaming for about an hour and a half. My voice is going. I'm going to probably crack again or squeak, and then you'll probably think I'm not a real pilot, let alone airline captain on the NG. But I love doing these sort of streams as well, and it's actually preparing for this stream and flying this it lets me practice my own instrument flying skills, so it's pretty cool there. Thank you. I've got a new member coming in as well, Craig Bates. Thank you very much for the membership and dedicated support to the channel. As you are now a member, you'll be invited automatically to the members-only Discord, where you can catch up with me and some other guys. We've got some really good members on the Discord now. We've got a 787 first officer who's a really good friend of mine, I've known from school. We've actually got a guy who's in the RAF, and he's flown many different aircraft too. He's helping me with some questions too. So yeah, we've got a great little Discord. Thank you very much for becoming a member. Excellent. So approaching flight level 100, we'll bring the speed back to 250 knots. Bring up the chart here. So yeah, we're not going to cheat on this chart either. So we're going to turn off the. There we are. Look, we're coming into the chart now. We're going to turn off the beacon. Actually, that's actually really nice seeing that, because it proves that we actually are flying into the right airport, not cocked it up. But we're going to turn it off. No cheating today. And as I said, when we're overhead the VOR, we're going to fly outbound. On a track of 170 on this offset teardrop for 1 minute and then a right turn. Now, which reminds me, there is no stopwatch on this aircraft. So Flyjsim, if you're still here listening, please could you add some sort of chronometer or stopwatch? I'm going to have to use the stopwatch on my iPhone just to make sure I've got the timings all correct. Nonetheless, it's fine, it works for me. Perfect. 17 miles, so I'm trying to work out in track miles. I've got 17 miles, plus outbound and inbound is going to be another 7, it's 24 track miles, so 34, 35, 7. I'd say we're maybe a little bit high here, a little bit, but as soon as we approach the SAM VOR, I'm going to bring the speed right back to 220 knots, and we'll probably, actually, you know what, I'm going to start using a little bit of speed brake. Christ, no, not onto the up point, so just do flight details fine. There we go. There's no VNAV guidance here, so I'm just using a little bit of 3 times table, 3 times distance, trying to work out how many track miles I've got left, plus all what I need to do. But yeah, we're just going to get back. I want to be around flight level 80, approaching SAM. That's really helping the rate of SAM. We're already doing 250, approaching flight level 100 as well. Excellent. Lovely wing views. Right, so there's 100. We can do the post-cruise checks. We've got fuel 4 pumps, pop these lights on. APU's off, pressurization's 3.5 set, seatbelts on, recall. Post-cruise checks complete. What we're going to do now, guys, is descend to the holding altitude of 3,000 feet. Which has been cleared by Southampton. Well, imagine that Southampton doesn't have any radar available, which is why we're doing the altitude there. So we can set 3,000 feet there. Excellent. And what's the QNH? That's what I need to do as well. I'm going to stow the speed brake to... I found out if you click this... Oh, there we go, disarms it too. So, what's the QNH in Southampton? It's 1009. Excellent. So we need to set that 3 times now. Just do this before we get really busy. So 1009, 1009, and 1009. There we go. Perfect. Flyjsim, a stopwatch. We use sand meters to count our turns. Brilliant. Love it. Right, so what we're going to do now, I'm not going to set the RMI for the next part of the hold. I want to get that set up for the ILS approach later. So what I'm going to use, sorry, the HSI, I'm going to use the radio magnetic indicator to hold, which is a very old school way of doing it. So once we go over the beacon, I need to get the tail of this onto a track of 170, which is the outbound track for the hold. So we're about here. We're going to go 170 outbound here on the 170 radio. So probably a good time now to go heading select actually. Heading select. I can set this course to the ILS now because I'm not going to use the HSI anymore. 200. I might use it for the hold. We're just going to wait for this needle to swing over. Now we need to keep that needle, the head of this needle, on the 189, which is the QDM we're flying inbound to the VR. Perfect. Oh, get my stopwatch ready as well, so we're about to go overhead the airfields. Perfect, this is going to get busy now. So again, we're getting a little bit like, oh yeah, I want to reduce the speed. I'm going way too fast really here, 220 knots. Just do about 200 knots. There we go, 1 mile. Needle there, it goes right over the top of the beacon, so I want to bring that heading now to 170. I've started my stopwatch. We need to do this for 1 minute now. £5 coming in from Leon Farrell, thank you very much. I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you. Oh, I know, I need it. Right, so now we are overhead the beacon. We're entering the hold using this offset procedural turn. And I want the tail of this on 170, so I need to bring that heading around a little bit more. And when you're doing instrument rating, having to do this whilst hand flying and talking to ATC as well. So they see that tail. I'm doing something called pulling the tail. So by setting my heading left of this, you can see that the tail's coming round nicely to 170. And as soon as it's on 170, I don't know what the wind is. We're going to set that heading. So that will do about 170 now. We should be pretty much on that outbound beacon there. We've got 50 seconds on my timer. We're still descending on a nice height, quite happy with my height here, so I'm going to keep it going down to 200 knots, which is around the upspeed. That's a minute, so we're going to turn now inbound to the beacon. The inbound course is 020. Again, ignoring the HSI, I'm using just the RMI here. And I want the head of this, needle on 020 by the time I complete the turn there. I think we're looking pretty good here. Descent's nice. I'm at a sensible speed, 200 knots. Step out of trim light. I don't know if that's normal in the 200. Just to show you where we are, I'll bring this up very briefly. There you go. So it's outside the hole, but that's just normal. And then we're going to fly inbound on the 020 in a second. Excellent. Looking at the head of that needle, we want that on 020 degrees. It's coming in quite nice. It might overshoot ever so slightly, so it's going a little bit fast initially. Just pop a bit of engine anti-ice on. Again, I don't know what the outside air temperature indicator is in this aircraft. I can't find it. We'll put that on just in case. So, looking at the head of this, yeah, overshot it slightly, so it's about 025. So I need to turn my heading a little bit past that. About 035. This is very, very rough and raw. I need to get that heading head of this RMI back onto 020. So we're just going to go past it slightly. ignoring the HSI because that's now based on the ILS approach. And now that head, now I'm right of the needle, it should start pushing that towards 020. Oh, I've got another tip and donation coming in, keeping me very busy. £19.20, very generous. C. Dicky, you replied to my question in a previous video and I never said thanks. Hope it was all well enjoying the streams. Thank you very much. That's a good sign. Look, there's the airport. Look at that. So there's 020, really busy. Get that heading back onto 020. Oops, that's not what I wanted to show you. There we go. Nice, a little bit right to the beacon, but that should be coming back there. I was too busy reading the donation there. Excellent, so the height's looking good, so I don't want to get much lower actually. I'm actually going to go to flap 1 now, bring the speed back to about 180 knots or so. We're about to go overhead the beacon, and we need to go, guys, if you remember, outbound on a 038 now, 038. Again, just using heading. I'll do this a bit more manually. So you can tell I'm right, a little bit right at the beacon, because it's very slowly dropping. If you've done it perfectly, the needle should just swing around very, very quickly. A little bit right at the beacon here. Right, so the next heading is going to be 038. Again, I'm going to bring that tail round, so I want the tail of this line on 038. So I'm just going to bring that heading to about 025. And this isn't a timing anymore, it's going to be based off a DME distance of 7.2 miles. Going to keep it descending, but we're going to add a little bit of thrust as well, because I'm getting quite low. We don't want to get much lower than we are already. So maintained about 180 knots. £5 tip and donation coming in as well from Anthony Carter. Thank you very much. I have been looking forward to this all day. You haven't disappointed. Bring on the rest of May. Thank you very much there. So now I need to get busy setting the ILS up. We need 11075, which is what the HSI is based on. So ignoring this now, I'm just using this needle here. And again, I told you I need up on 037, so bring that heading back round to around 037. So a little bit left. Concentrating. I'm going to set up heading on about 040 degrees. So we might be out 038. Sorry, that's the course we're looking for. So I need the tail of this on 038. So about 042, and again looking for 7.2 miles here. Again, when it goes to 7, we'll just give it an extra few seconds. It doesn't go to a nearest decimal point there. Again, that's a nice rate of descent. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go to flap 5 now. Bring the speed back to around 160. Oh, Steve Frampton coming in with a £5 donation. Thank you very much for that. Climbing slight. Don't want to climb. Keep descending. Waiting for 7 miles. Excellent. Just to show you, tail on a little bit left still, so I need to adjust that heading. So we're going to be inside this slightly. Yeah, you can see, look, I'm just put that there, so I'm not really accurately flying the RMI. So I'm just going to go further right there, just to swing that tail around, and then we'll make our turn onto final. Oh yeah, also we can step down to 1800 feet as well, and we'll keep it going down now too. Right, so fiddly, 7 miles as well, getting busy, 1800 feet. Right, now let's set a heading to turn final. Give ourselves a nice little intercept heading. Let's go for about 235 degrees, that should work nicely. We'd identify the ILS and all that sort of stuff as well. Imagine the approach test is complete. Hopefully I've identified the correct ILS. And hopefully, I think we might be a little bit high on profile, so I'm going to go flap 10. Yeah, we are going to be high, 3,000 feet. We can easily bring the gear and flap out if we need it. I still get the speed. I think I've still got the speed brake out. I can't remember if I have. Oh, oh no, I put it away. Yeah, that's good. Right, the glide slope should come alive very shortly. I'd say we're looking okay here. Altitude alert's on. Just going over to 1,800 feet. Oh, look at that. I'd say that's not bad. I think the glide slope's coming in nicely. So we can arm now, auto approach. And I'm getting quite low on the glide slope, so I'm adding a lot of thrust now. This is challenging. This is so challenging. But we've done it nonetheless. I did the full procedural approach and hold somehow. Right, so I've just added a bit of thrust just to get back onto the ILS. I'm going to bring the speed back to about 150 knots now. Back to idle so the aircraft starts pitching down so we can go onto the ILS. There's the localizer captured. Put the flight directors on auto approach. And glide slope capture as well, we're all looking good now. I need to really manage the speed by looking at the thrust quite carefully. We'll configure at about 5 miles, gear down, flat 15. Nicola 16789. Listening to Morse code is for cowards. I wouldn't do that on your instrument rating though. There we go. We can also set the missed approach altitude 3,000 feet. 2. There we go. Right, so our VREF was 125, so we're going to fly 130 as our final target speed. We'll just configure about 5 miles. There we are. Where's the fixer in, Stuart Walsh? Love it. Right, there's 5 miles. That'll do. Right, gear down, flap 15. We're going to go all the way to 125 knots now. Match the speed. Landing checks the flaps. So we've got start switches. Oops, left the engine anti-ice on. Never mind. That's continuous. Recall check. Speed brake arm green light. Landing gears down 3 green. Order brake we've got set to max. Holding on the landing flap, which is flap 40. Amazing. You can set flap 40 at 170 knots. That's pretty quick. Right, let's select landing flap 40, 125 knots. Remember, no thrust here, so I'm going to have to add the thrust now. Manually. There we go. It is, compared to a Zebo mod stream and flying the NG, this is twice as hard. The workload is very high. I'm exhausted. I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm going to have a strong beer tonight. Really nice, excellent. So landing flap 40, 40. Oh no, there's no FMC to check, so that's fine. Lights are on. Speed's 130 knots. That's our target speed. So a little bit low on speed here. Excellent. Purity, one downwind, not quite. We've done a procedural hold, procedural approach onto the islet. We're about to land here. Excellent. There's 130. It's a very short runway. Let's see how my landing is in the 200. How many are watching? 624 people. Oh my goodness me. Oh, better not spank it out. I even know what the wind is in Southampton right now. Let's have a look quickly on my phone. 2008 knots, right down the runway. Even less excuses. Right. Let's disconnect anyway. 500. Autopilot. Oh no, that doesn't work on my joystick, does it? Autopilot off. Push that, keep it descending, and I'm only going to look outside because I've got these rubbish flight directors. Speed's okay, what about 130, so I'm just going to add a little bit of thrust. Oh, I need a power nap after this, guys. So approaching minimums, you get the MDA light coming up 3 whites, a little high, keep descending. There's the MDA light to say we're at minimums, that's so cool. A little bit high at 3 whites, keep it descending. There we go, looking good now. 2 reds, 2 whites, pitching up just slightly. Check, close. It's going to be firm. Oh no, there we go. Speed brakes up, I think. Reverses. That's what we call a Boeing landing. I'm adding thrust, reverse thrust. There we go. 100 knots. 80 knots. 60 knots. Let's go to idle. Oh dear, my butter streak is over. We made it at least, and haven't got off the end of the runway. Brakes will be very hot as well. Oh look, and look at those cool reverse buckets. Nice. We're going to look at the replay anyway, guys. Wicked. There's the first exit out for 1. Braking manually now. I can stow those reverses. Retract the speed brake as well. Oops. There we go. I just click back there. Have I missed the exit? Not quite. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Southampton. That was excellent. Apart from the landing. Oh, look at the comments coming in. Teeth. 700 feet per minute. Guys, these airplanes are built like brick houses. I'd be more than satisfied with a landing like that in Southampton in reality. Trust me. Lard. Is that the opposite to a butter? Is it lard? I love it. Right, retracts, fixed landing lights are off. Strobes can come off, flaps. We can select flaps up. Sceneries from Orbex, guys, really, really nice. Looks really, really good. Quite narrow taxiways here, though. Weather radar can come off. No MCP really to tidy up here. This can come off too. Probes can come off as well. And we'll start the APU in 2 seconds. There we go. Guys, we got here in one piece. That's the really important thing. No crashes. Didn't get lost using VOR navigation, which I was worried about most likely. Oh, look, fuel trucks here. Yeah, they heard there was a 200 coming in. Brilliant. Actually, where we're going to park, we didn't actually really brief the taxi routing in today. There's a nice little stand in the corner here. I think I'll squeeze on. It looks like that's probably where they're expecting us as well. Claudia, back surgery required. Frozen butter. You guys crack me up. Oh, I'll make a left here. Perfect. Right, APU should be coming on nicely. There it is. Pop off the turn off and taxi lights. What stands do we have here? Well, I was going to go on to stand 4, but it looks like they're trying to close it off. We'll go for stand 3 instead. Oh, we can't even go on stand 3. Look, there's all sorts of barriers here. We'll go right in the corner, guys. We'll go to stand 2. Oh, jeez. Excellent. APU's available. Pop that in a second. Just turn on to stand. Oh, why is it not recognising that? Oh, and I've overshot the stand as well because I'm trying to do too much at once. Alright, let's get that on the bus. There we go. Right, we'll get that tidied up though. Park at maintenance. Who said? Kim, that's cheeky. Structural landing. Over heavy landing required there. Right, there's the stop line. Now, why aren't my brakes working? What the hell? Oh my god, my brakes stopped working there. I think I've overshot slightly. Not to worry. Right, parking brake is set. 2 blues, 1 red. Engine's dead. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Southampton. Pop that off. We'll do the full shutdown flow as well, because someone did ask on Instagram if I could do that. So pop off the fuel pumps. Or pop off the electric hydraulic pumps, which are just on this side. Window heat can come off as well. And then the anti-collision light off too. Excellent, there we are. In one piece, slightly past the stop line, but we'll take that. Excellent, what an excellent aircraft that was. What an enjoyable flight as well, albeit I'm now exhausted. Now, just before we shut down the aircraft completely and do the replays, I always love looking at these comments and coming with the landing. I got ouch, ouch, oof, ouch, oof. Chris just choked on my boiled sweet. Stuart Walsh, he's got it. Perfect short runway landing. My neck. Down, oh, you're down. Oh my goodness me. Spike on his bike. I think my spine is down with the main gear. Outstanding. Whiplash for life. Carl, you've summed it up. Any landing you can walk away from. It was pretty firm. We're going to look at the replay as well. But before we do that, we'll get the aircraft completely shut down. We'll get the GPU... Oh, I can't get the GPU connected because I can't find the menu. But anyway, all you'd have to do is take the packs off, move that to off, and then might be a few other things with the 200, and then just trip the ground power and then off once everyone else is off the aircraft. But that's it. Anyway, let's go look at the replay because that's going to be quite funny to watch. So, Alt-R, put the old ending music out, and let's go for the threshold view initially. Oh my goodness, it was firm, but I think you could let me off anyway. Actually, I think if I pop this on, you should get all the lights appear too. So I'll get a little bit closer in, that should do us. Let's go for the threshold view. Coming in like a steam train, look at that. Pyraby still searching for the dentures between the aisles. Classic, good one. You guys. Excellent, over the threshold we went. Probably a little bit low. Let's have a look. Oh, a bit firm. Where's those smoky tyres? A little bounce. It doesn't look as bad from that view. I always thought it was going to. Oh dear. Just going to go slow-mo for a second. I found a really cool view which I quite like to use. That's this one. There we go. Let's see how that looked from here. Oh, pretty firm. I think the wingtips did touch the runway. And there's the buckets deploying. Looking really, really cool there. My goodness, dear. Right, guys, so thank you very much for turning up for this old school stream. It was thoroughly enjoyable, albeit I'm absolutely exhausted after doing that flight, doing some raw data navigation. For those of you that have just joined me, thank you very much if you've subscribed and became a member. I did get a new member coming in, and thank you for everyone that donated as well. Flyjsim, yeah, this aircraft is available in the Explain store. Can't remember how much it is, but I can thoroughly recommend it nonetheless. Thank you very much for turning up. Next stream, maybe in about a week and a half. I've got some having a quick breakaway. with my partner for a few days, so I'm having a break from simming and everything aircraft related. But I'll keep in touch with you on social media, and I look very much forward to seeing you on the next live stream very soon. Take care, guys, and have a great weekend. Bye bye.